This conference will now be recorded.
Yeah. Okay. Let me go back up here to the agenda. The agenda looks the same as it has for the last couple of times. In terms of news from LibLime, I don't really have any news from LibLime. This week when I met with Patrick and John and Bill, what I learned was that 3 sites are being, their databases are being moved to a different server, and Hartford is one of them. So you'll be aware of that and of what's going on with that. Today we have just University of Hartford on the call today. I got a message from Anne shortly, about 15 minutes ago, saying that it was a religious a religious observance today. So I think that most people, here comes Julia. People are still working from home, and it's somehow, it's not quite as easy for everybody to become or to get on a call these days. The first thing that I've got on the agenda here is, or the second thing, is the impact of COVID-19. I know that you're all working from home right now. Do you have anything else that you can share about what's going on with your campus?
Hi, Becky, it's Ben.
Hi, Ben.
So yeah, it's been cataloging has been going apace. As a matter of fact, I think that Cindy and Jennifer and Zach have been doing a great job while they're working at home. I know that Jennifer's been working on uploading what was it, about 7,500 ebook records that were temporarily made available to the university because of the crisis. And
17,000 actually.
Oh, how many was it? Oh,
17,000.
God, I'm awful. Yeah. But this is a situation where Jennifer massaged the data using MarcEdit and uploaded it, and she's going to use tags within the records in order to pull them all out once the trial is done as well.
Good.
Not a lot of circ functions, though.
No, I can't imagine. It'll be hard to justify anything based on circulation figures for any library, I think, for the next budget cycle. Let's see, Julia, is there anything that you would like to share about what's going on with your campus?
We are plugging along pretty well. Our students are really familiar with being online learners already, and our library is primarily online. So it's just been a lot of work, like it was just said, to make available all those free resources. But I think we're doing okay.
Okay, good. And Stephen?
They've been going in actually and circulating laptops and hotspots, which certainly makes me very uncomfortable, and also the people who are having to do that work.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, as a community college, we still have a digital divide, and we haven't really done a great job of analyzing that, which isn't especially helpful now But we've been doing a whole week of online professional development and trainings and trying to get people up to speed. And we'll see next week when classes are supposed to start if students show up and faculty show up.
Yeah, yeah, it's quite a time for experimenting with education systems, but I think that's happening. Well, just generally in Minnesota, our governor just extended the stay-at-home order until May 4th, and that means that Easter celebrations are pretty much located within a person's home. No getting together with family or anything. The K-12 schools here are all doing, they're doing a combination of online teaching and self-guided teaching, I believe. It appears to be going okay, according to what I read in the newspapers, but we'll see what's happening. I just saw yesterday that ALA has been canceled. So nobody will get to go to ALA this year, which I think is okay. So are all of you in states that have the stay-at-home order, or are some of you and not?
We're in stay at home until May 4th also.
Okay.
And the public schools have been closed for the duration.
Has there been any news about what they're going to do about finishing the school year?
They will be no, they'll be working digitally as well.
Oh, okay. Okay. Huh. Okay. Well, there's not much that we can do about this right now, so we'll just go on to enhancements. When in the email that I sent out to you, I did send 3 files that are, if you looked at them, they're very brief, but I wanted to make sure that the format of them are something that is workable for everyone. Okay, this is these are in no particular order either. I only got 3 of them done, and I was thinking of things, and being retired is probably a more busier lifestyle than not being retired. So I didn't get as much done as I had hoped to get done. The first enhancement here, and I thought we maybe just talk through this a little bit to see if this is something that can be worked with by everybody. But the title of the document is the enhancement request, or circ stats before transactions are anonymized. And what I started doing with this one is I started looking to see what already exists in the system, and it started getting really complicated. So I decided that I wasn't going to do any more on this one for a little bit, so that I could ruminate about what I was finding. The circ stats are stored in a table called statistics, and the way that they're stored, what it stores is basically what kind of a transaction it is and when it happened. So you may have a transaction that's called an issue, and it happened on July 28th, let's say 2010. And that will stay in that table forever. That table keeps growing and growing and growing. And in order to do statistics reports, you have to use that table in combination with item and patron tables as well, to get your limits by, say, patron category or by item category. And it becomes a kind of a complicated thing. So as I started understanding how the stats were stored, I then wanted to I then went into researching again how the anonymization piece of it is working. And that's why I put this section 516 anonymized reading history. And when the reading history is anonymized, it doesn't do anything to the statistics table. So whatever transactions had occurred to a specific item throughout the history of the item being in your collection, all of those transactions stay in the circulation table. So the stats, the transactions themselves are saved all the way along. And when the request is to store the circ stats before transactions are anonymized, LibLime could, if they didn't want to try and do something for us, would probably say, well, they're already stored. And after the anonymization takes place, you can still get you can still get the history of issues, renewals, and returns by querying the statistics table. So what I'm trying to figure out here is figuring out how to make this request sound not just saying this is what we want it to do. What we want, I think, is to have more data stored in the statistics table itself, so that we could do things like crosses between patrons and items, and the number of times something was checked out or renewed, and within a date range, etc. So I think maybe part of what the description of this should be is that we want to have more data in the statistics table itself.
Yeah, specifically the patron category.
Yeah.
So if they
Maybe
just
having
added patron category along with the borrower number, and then the only thing they would remove would be the borrower number, then that'd be fine.
Mm-hmm.
At least with me.
I think maybe the item type should also be in there, because I know that I also tried running some of the search statistics and ended up finding a problem in it. With the search statistic that I did, I was, doing just simple things, crossing patrons with items, just doing rows and columns. And when I looked at the reports, the totals should have matched exactly, because all the numbers were exact, but they didn't match. There were either 1, 2, or 3 counts off. So I entered that as a support center ticket, and Michelle looked at it and agreed that there's something screwy going on. So I'm wondering if the whole underlying portion of how how the statistics are kept are somehow affecting the totals. So that makes me question whether the totals are approximations or if they are accurate totals.
Hi, Becky. This approach
Go ahead.
this approach could also help with situations where we want to delete an item record, but we want to retain the statistics that went along with it. If we're actually
Right.
recording statistics into a new file based on just the numbers that were associated with the transactions, we never have to worry about that again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that, I'll add more words to this and have you all look at it and see if it sounds like what we've been discussing. But I think that, to get accurate stats, you need to have a table that has not just the transaction, but also information about that transaction that could be useful. And I think that it's not that difficult to do to add more fields to a table, and it just means that when a transaction is recorded, it's going to pick up not only just the fact that it was an issue, renew, or a return, but it will pick up the fact at the issue, and maybe that needs to be stated too, is that issues and renewals need to copy in the patron category and the item type, and possibly also the barcodes that go with each of those. So it would be a whole lot easier to do statistics instead of having all the different tables to join. So we'll see how that one adds or comes about, and I'll try and get this out to you again before the next meeting so that we can verify that it's right, and then I'll make sure it gets passed on up. I added at the bottom of each of the enhancements is written, submitted, ordered, and completed. And this was more or less just a way to try and keep track of what's happened to these. John likes to have numbers on everything, and you'll notice I did not assign a number of anything or anything to this. It's just, so far, just text. So I thought if I did this, a number can always be added to an enhancement request later, like when it's ordered. And that probably should be added in here too, enhancement request number. But this would be an easy way for everyone to be kept informed about what was going on with these. John also likes spreadsheets, and I think that for enhancements like this, we would want to see what's going on with a specific enhancement rather than looking through a spreadsheet trying to find a line that has that enhancement in it. This would be very simple to maintain. So that's sort of what I'm proposing at this point. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes.
Sounds good to me.
It does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to another one. I sent you 3. Let me find the other ones on my computer here. Okay. This one I did a little bit more work on it, so there's maybe not a lot that has to be added to this one. But one of the enhancement ideas was to add the preferred name for the patrons. And in describing what is wanted here, I just basically said we want a new field called preferred name and possibly put into the patron identity part of the patron form, which can be used for creating patrons, editing patrons in notices and reports. And that's pretty much the only other thing I thought about adding to here is that in reports, in reports, you would want to identify whether you want the first name or the preferred name. So that would have to be a choice that would show up in the messages when you start selecting fields to go into the message. But other than that, this is a pretty straightforward, simple thing for them to do. And I couldn't think of anything else to add in there. Is this something that any of you have any additions to suggest to add into this?
I think you might want to say in the specification that in notices and whatever that they would want to always use the preferred name instead of first name if there is one. You might want to specify that.
Okay. Like that? Is that basically what you suggested, Jen?
Yeah, I think that's good.
Okay. Okay. So maybe this one is one that we have done, and we could send it forward to John and to Patrick. I don't think this would even take all that much to do. But we'll let LibLine come back and tell us. Okay. That was the one that I was having trouble with. The other one that I started working on was the store authorities. And this one, maybe I can pull it up this way. Yeah. Okay, this one, all I could come up with right now is that the authority file is currently saved in JSON format. And those of you who have tried to do reports using this format know that it's really difficult to pull out the data. When I looked at the authority table or the table authorities, the data is, the data that is stored is not the entire MARC record. It's just bits and pieces of the MARC record that's stored in these JSON formatted fields or lines, and trying to find, if you wanted to find tag 100 with a specific name, you might be able to do that. But if you wanted to find tag 100s that had any name in it, so that you wanted to find it, and you wanted it to be an LC authority, in other words, it had to have a 010 field in it, I think it would be difficult to try and get that particular kind of a report generated. Another report. Yeah.
I was just agreeing with you that I think it would be nice to have all of that data available to us, because, and then we also need the ability to export it, which would be a lot easier if it was in MARC too.
Yes. definitely. But Jennifer, you've tried to run some reports before against authorities, correct?
Yeah, and it was very hit or miss. Some of them didn't even work at all, and they were the ones that Bibline created for us. So they were supposed to work, but they did not. I was able to pull some data, but not everything came back.
I was able to, well, I wasn't able to make a report that actually ran, but I tried to modify one of the reports that Liblime wrote to take away the date requirement in particular, and also to take away the between. There was a clause that said go between this piece and this piece. And I tried to do it so it would just find everything, and it wouldn't run. So
I think they're too big if you do that, because there's so many authority records for one bib record. You know, there can be so many behind it.
Yeah. So I
understand that.
You have to have some kind of filter. But you know, if I wanted to find everything that had a subfield V, I doubt you'd be able to do that either. So So if you can go against the MARC record, you could find it. You could get a count anyway. But the way that it is right now, it's pretty much unusable.
I very much agree.
So, so I'm wondering, with this request, if it would be worthwhile trying to identify some reports that you really would want to run, rather than some that were made up based on the way the formatting was done in the table.
I mean, I would like the flexibility that we have with the bibliographic records, where I can pick any field and any subfield that I need to look at. That's really what we should have. I don't think a set of canned reports suits all of our needs. I could certainly list the types of reports that, you know, the kind of things we could do, but I really think that we should push for the same flexibility that we have with the bib records, which is why storing them in MARC would make more sense. I mean, I think we can always fall back and settle for canned reports, but I think we should push to get the kind of flexibility that we have with the bibs.
Yeah, I would see canned reports. It's more be the kind that you would want to know how many of something is in there, like how many genre headings or something. So,
and that information doesn't do me any good at all. I mean, very little help. I need to see what it is.
Right. Okay. So I will. I'll expand that so that it has more words in it. But I think that that's something that is definitely. I think it's pretty understandable to anybody who works with the data. I'm not so sure the programmers actually work with the data itself. So they need to rely on us for telling them what we need to have.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you think it would be, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Do you think it would be as Go ahead, Becky.
I was going to say the only other thing that I can think of is to fake a report that we would like to see, so that they could see what we want the output to look like. So let me think that through a little bit too, and then run something by you, Jen, to see if it's something that would work.
Sure. I mean, one of the reports that we've always wanted is the ability to see which ones are generated by the system and which ones are legit hand created or brought in from OCLC. And that, you know, is indicated by subfield Z in I can't remember the field right now, 9 something,
Yeah.
by LibLime. So that would be one example of being able to get down to a subfield in a field that is not something that you would index in, to be used in the front end.
Right.
But I can think of many more, like
Okay.
when the last updated dates, or whether it has the 382 field in it, which is, relatively new. We could find all of our ones that are missing that and upgrade them or whatever. That's the kind of activity that we would like to do and clean up.
Okay.
Or all of the ones that have, like recently for music, they changed how you list instrumentation. And so the subfield M used to say, like for string quartets, it used to just say quartet strings. And now it says quartets, violins, 2, viola, cello. And they've done that with all the different ensembles. So it'd be really nice to be able to pull all those and like go in and replace strings with violin, viola, cello for all those ones that are quartets, So it'd be nice to be able to find those, pull them out, massage them and mark edit, put them back in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with, people's dates and names, and it'd be nice to find when a composer dies, it'd be nice to find all of their works, pull those out, and fix the dates all at once instead of one at a time. Add their closing date.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are a lot of things I can put in here then. I'll start them and then I'll hand it over to you, Jen, and you can add some more.
Absolutely.
Because I think that's the only way they're going to understand why we have to be able to get into the MARC record itself, not just the JSON data. They might think that nobody ever wants to do reports on authorities, but I know that they're wrong in that.
That's how you keep your database clean.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let me go down to this list down here. And
Becky, one more thing on that. Do you think it would help basically just to tell them to set it up the same way that we have MARC blob set up for bib records?
That's going to be one of the things that I put in there, definitely.
Okay.
Because the whole reason that the MARC format is so good is because we know how to work with it and how to manipulate it in reports, that is. And there would be the learning curve would be looking at another format to find to find what you really want. But the whole part of creating an SQL request should be the same as what we do for a bibliographic record.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I have a question for you. Which of these I should probably figure out some way to highlight the ones that are in process. But of these other ones, if there were another 3 that you would like to see added to this list that was basically just me picking them, are there any that you think we should try and get done so that we could submit maybe 5 requests to John and Patrick by May?
Well, you know that I would be very interested in seeing the authority normalization being fixed so it doesn't delete data on us.
Yes.
And I have been, kind of going through, and I haven't touched it for a while because of the pandemic, but I do have a spreadsheet that I had before of things that didn't work, and I've been updating it. Okay, this works now. Do we still need this now? And what's still broken? I would be happy to, share that with Cindy, and if there's somebody else who's interested in looking at it, and we could kind of see if we can find all of the things that are broken with that.
Okay. Okay, so that's one that we want to add. Let me put. I forgot I was in edit mode, so I'll just go ahead and edit these. And okay. What about, actually, I guess this want to run reports and extract results is marked. That's another one that, well, this one, E, add functionality to restore a deleted record to active status. That one, when we first started using Koha, when you deleted a record, it would only copy out a couple of fields to put into the deleted bibs table. And I'm not sure if they now keep the entire bib record in the deleted bibs table. That might be something that I can look into to see if that's even something that would be possible. I think that one of the original specifications that were drawn up had the ability to delete and undelete, and I think that they got the delete part, but they never got the undelete. So I want to do a little bit of historical searching on that to see what that original spec actually said. And I know what the wish is. So if you have an item that is lost and you want to replace it and you try to replace it, but it's not available, not in back, or it's on back order or something, you would want to be able to keep that record around somehow. One way would be to suppress the record until the item was returned, but another way would be to delete the record and be able to undelete it. To bring it back in when the item is there or is received. But I want to do a little bit of historical research on this one to see if that was something that Waldo had originally asked for and we didn't get, because I think that would make this a little bit stronger enhancement request to say this was something that was never delivered.
Yeah, I think that the last time I did an advanced search and told it to include the deleted, I was able to see the whole MARC record. It just gets rid of the
Okay.
holdings. So
Okay, that's good.
seems like they could just move it from one table to another, and
right, exactly.
things would be good.
I kind of think it should be even easier than that. Maybe I'm being naive, but aren't these basically just logical deletes? Isn't there basically just one character that's to a bib record saying, pretend this is a deleted record and don't display it to the public anymore?
Mm-hmm. That's what I think it should be. I don't know if it is actually that way. In the leader, that position 6, I think it is, byte 6, no, byte 5. Anyway, there is a byte that tells you whether the record is a new, corrected, or a deleted record. And that's the byte I think that should control whether or not records appear. If they're either new or corrected, display them. If there's a D in that byte, don't display it. Treat it as a deleted record.
Yeah, there's a subfield in the 942 as well that indicates whether it's deleted or not or suppressed.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, it's the 0, 1, or 2. So I'll let you know next time we meet what I find out about the original specification was. Okay. I'm not going to highlight that one because I don't know if that's one that, it sounds like it's one we want to pursue right away. But, oh, well, I'll go ahead and highlight it. Okay. There. Okay. Of those that are not highlighted, are there any others that any of you are interested in seeing fleshed out a little bit so that we can get a price quote on them?
Yeah, there's add dates and acquisitions item ordered reports so that we can do sorting and searching on those.
Okay.
Cool. I think there were other people who had mentioned prevent checkout when item is a status other than available.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know how that would be written, but
that one, I know Jane came back and said, well, there's the blocks that you can use, but I think that it isn't the blocks that anyone was concerned with. It was just the fact that if an item says that it's checked out, or if it's withdrawn, or if it's anything, you shouldn't be able to check it out to somebody else. And I think that's what the original problem was, is that items that were in different whole or different statuses were able to be checked out even though they shouldn't have been.
right.
That one might be difficult because it might be difficult to create the situation where you can check something out if it's not available.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Speaking of creating difficult situations, yeah, the last two on the list, letters M and N, truncation.
Yes.
Yeah, truncation for musicals and being able to put words on stop lists. Those are two sides of the same coin. Basically, it's the fact that as great as solar is and its flexibility is, it turns out to be a little too inclusive as far as flexibility in the language. We'd like to be able to control that either by adding words to the stop list that we don't want it to truncate, to auto truncate, or to change the extent of the truncation so that we can do searches for, say, words like musicals. Right now, when you work through our, for those of you who don't know, for the two of you who don't know, when you go through our catalog looking for musicals, you don't get a list of just the things that have the word musicals in it because it's a truncation that goes all the way back to music.
Yeah, and I don't know enough about the way solar does its truncation to know if that's something that it just does or if it's programmed that way.
I think it just does. I did a lot of research on it, trying to find a way that you can modify the stop list. I think it has one, but not a lot of people know how to work it. I also know that it has some sensitivity settings that you can mess with. The work that I did in investigating in our catalog, whatever I did to that, they didn't go far enough to keep musicals from being truncated back to music. This might open a larger can of worms because a lot of people are switching over to Elastic right now instead of Solar. So I don't know if it's because when I've asked before, Jane has already come back and said, well, this is Solar, this is how Solar works, and we have Solar, so we have to get used to the situation. I'm like, well, all right, do we really need to have Solar then?
I solar's been around for a long time, and indexing continues to advance. So if we have an indexing program that doesn't do what we need it to do or what we want it to do, maybe the idea to switch to a different indexing engine would be worthwhile. That might be difficult to sell to LibLine.
Yeah,
but
if it helps to say, hey, the other kids are doing it too, then we can point out that Community Co is already switching over to Elastic.
Right.
I hate to suggest it because I don't know if I'm one of Solar's last great defenders, but I actually like its magical search capabilities. I just wish that it could be not quite so accommodating in some certain circumstances. And I love the fact that it'll go through and change all the MARC records to tables to make it much more searchable. And I like the way that it's integrated with APIs, but this might just be because I don't know anything else. Elastic could be even better.
Yeah. Well, all I know is that Community Koha is moving to it. I haven't looked to see how it's going for them. I know that usually a move like that takes a little bit of effort, and it isn't something that's done real quickly. So it'll be interesting to watch what they're doing with it. I'm not going to highlight this one quite yet, but definitely I think it's worthwhile being on the list.
Hey, Ben, do you happen to know whether the stopwords.txt file is in the individual instances, or does it live somewhere above them?
That's a really good question. I kind of thought that the stopwords.txt file was a holdover from when we were using Zebra. And even then, it was something that would apply to everybody. But that was back in the days when Koa was, it was installed as a much larger installation. Back when we couldn't even make modifications to the XSLT because whatever we did would have shown up in your catalog as well.
Yeah.
And then at some point it was partitioned out, but I don't know if the stopword.txt file went along with it. And again, I don't know if stopfile.txt is part of Solr or not.
I mean, it looks like it is.
All right. It sounds like you're looking at it right now. Could you send me what you're looking at?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, are there other ideas that we'd like to add to the list? Okay, hearing nothing, I'm going to say at this point we don't have anything else to add. Keep in mind, though, that if you're working in the system on anything and you stop and think it'd be better if it would do this, feel free to send me a note, ask me to add it to the enhancement list, and we can then talk about it and get something written up on it. Okay, is there anything else that anybody wants to bring up today?
I'm good, thanks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
And I have a meeting at 1, so I need to get ready for that. So
Okay.
I'll bid you all farewell, and until next time.
Okay, in 2 weeks, April 23rd.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Becky. Bye.